we want to come from a place of all feelings are welcome, but all behaviors are not. Like, it's not wrong to be sad in a moment when you're appropriately sad, but it's more about how we handle it and what the behavior is from it.
I'd rather be sidelined trying to achieve greatness than watch greatness achieved and it only set on the sideline. Now introducing your host, Jacob Emery.
This episode of the Iron and Infrastructure Podcast is brought to you by Unlocking Greatness with Jacob Emery, a coaching community built for those ready to become the strongest version of themselves. Weekly calls, proven playbooks, and a community built to grow. Greatness is not given, it's unlocked. Join us today at jacobemery.com or DM coach at jacobemery44 on all social media platforms. Welcome to another edition of the Iron and Infrastructure Podcast. Today, we are going to head down a different path than normal. I'm very excited about this. It's not normally a day on this podcast where we get to talk about parenting and purpose and being present and leading, but not just leading other adults, leading children. This episode is going to be special. So if you don't have pen and paper down in your hands, you ought to get pen and paper and take some notes, because I promise there's going to be some great quality to take away from this. Dr. Juhi, thank you for your time today. I am so excited to have you on the show. We've spent about 10 minutes getting to know each other. You spit so much wisdom already. I had to just stop it and say, we got to get going. It's amazing to have you on the show today. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Jacob. I really appreciate the opportunity.
We were talking a little bit about raising children and the generational age of a millennial. Use that for the example. And we kind of talked about how parenting styles over generations change. Today's generation is so vastly different than ever before. The rate of distraction is instant. Information is instant. When I was a kid, I think I came into like a dial-up internet era at maybe 10 years old. And I had a flip phone that, I mean, you could shoot that thing out of a can and it would still work whenever I first got it, black and white. And then as I went through high school, everything started to evolve with cell phone usage. And then the iPod came out and it changed quickly. I don't know anything different, but technology advancement at a very high rate. And what we're going through today, though, is very unique because the rate of technology acceleration is at an all-time high. I think we're living in the best possible era that could ever be. And I don't think a lot of us realize how special it is. The power of AI, the power of what's to come in the future is so incredibly amazing for everything that we do in the life that we can live. But it is very distracting, and it really sets up a false reality almost to what hard work looks like, to what building character looks like. So as you navigate parenting children of your own and parenting or leading other parents in this distraction world that we're in, how do you focus on one thing specifically, or what are the things that you focus on specifically that are the prime things to recognize as a parent with children?
Yeah, so that's such an important topic that's so relevant in today's world, is because you're right. It's just tech acceleration, AI, and everybody's just feeling that they're behind in some way or the other. There's social media that is very distracting for adults and children. Um, and of course, there's guidelines, there's guidelines to when social media should be provided or a phone should be provided to children. Schools are doing their best as well. Um, and I think as a parent, you know, it's not wrong to say that it's so distracting that sometimes we're struggling with our own attention span, let alone our kids' attention spans. And I think one thing I really focus in my parenting, and I tell this to every parent that is in my world, is don't forget being present when your child is present around you. Now, I don't mean that in a way that you always have to have a conversation or you always have to engage or play a game or anything like that, but it's more about, I kind of divide it into like three main touch zones for being present, which are really, really important in our daily lives. The first one's when your children first wake up or have the first interaction with you in the morning. I make it a point that there's no devices around
Mhm.
that environment, that there's good eye contact, and there is, even if it's just a good morning, that's enough. It's still a connection. The second point is when they come home from school. And if, as a parent, you're home, I make it a point that again, clear out all the distractions and have that eye contact and come in from a place of just curiosity. Not, I try not to ask this question, how was your day? I try to first come in with a snack or just like a fun fact or some sort of interaction, or even if it's silence, I'd rather it be silent than, anything else,
Mhm.
because they're just emotionally charged and overwhelmed from their day. And then the third is bedtime when they're, saying goodnight. Again, no distractions, no phones, no screens. And I find that that has been transformative in my parenting. And I hear the feedback from other parents that they are feeling the same. Because you don't need to spend, a lot of money or a lot of time with the kids. It's more about the quality of moments spent
Mhm.
with them.
I absolutely love that. I am not someone that believes in balance. I think the definition of balance goes against everything that I'm actually doing in life. But being present for me is a gift, and I think that's why they call gifts
Hmm.
presents. I always try to keep
Hmm.
that at the forefront. I in my day start my day with gratitude. Every single night, every single day, no matter what happens, I find the good in that day. And I love how you talked about that because before I put my kids to bed every night, I read them a book and I read it like I am on a TED Talk as the best-selling
Yeah.
author to promote my book. I am very animated, I'm very intentional about it, and I've come to realize that time balancing is not a realistic thing, probably
Hmm.
throughout the duration of most of our lives, but being intentional with what we give our attention to. So right now, you have 100% of my attention. There is zero else in the world going on right now. And we dedicated time together. We're spending time together. When I'm with my kids, I try to make it like that. Intentional attention because I'm all in on what I'm doing. And it's kind of the ability to focus on what's important in the moment. And so if I'm executing in a business meeting, if I'm executing on a strategy or spending time with my kids, or if I'm taking a damn nap, I'm going to execute on that thing with my full intent because nothing to me is worse than being 1 foot in, 1 foot out and not actually being present with what you're doing. Being present is really hard sometimes, though, and we were not guided in a way that showed us how to navigate through social media either. So we came through the social media era as it was being
Hmm.
released, so we probably have a worse issue with it than what our kids do or with what an iPad is. I didn't have an iPad growing up. My daughter's asked me before about me having an iPad when I was younger, and I start laughing. But thinking about the generational thing, it's kind of like us as students and teachers. We become teachers as we have kids, the
Yeah.
students, and really, though, we're parenting ourselves to evolve with it, the same as we're parenting our kids, and it makes it really, really difficult to navigate because it's never really been navigated before.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. In the digital age, that this is a whole nother world that we're navigating. And it used to be, I mean, I would even like think about it as like a pre-COVID era and a post-COVID era, because during COVID, when all the kids and everybody went online, I think that really just pushed everybody. It was a need to
Mhm.
be online more than offline. And I think then it became kind of a way of life, And now we're all like, oh my gosh, there's too much screen time. All of a sudden, we're all realizing that, and we want to scale back, and we don't know how. But I think there's hope. I think if we intentionally think about it, because I get this a lot. Like, I've already given my kid like 4 hours of screen time per day. How do
Mhm.
I now all of a sudden tell them that I'm just going to take the iPad completely out because now I know that it's bad? Well, you don't have to. You
Mm.
can, again, it's all about the intention that you set. And depending on the age of the child, you can have a, honest conversation about it and reset and reframe that. And even if we scale back, like, say, 10 minutes a day to an optimal amount, which is agreed upon by your family, that still would work towards, going more offline and more present with what's happening. The other thing we're struggling with right now is we're raising a generation that, for the most part, doesn't know how to be bored. Because if you remember, like, car rides,
Mhm.
and road trips, like, what I remember from my childhood is just looking outside or taking a nap or having a conversation or maybe playing like a car game. But now I'm having to like negotiate screen time during car rides. And it's like, okay, well, 30 minutes of this and, then 30 minutes off.
Mhm.
But it's the brain's just wired to be like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? And we don't have these white spaces built in. And so, as you know, if we don't have that focus time built in, then that kind of affects our creativity. And it's going to affect the thinking and the thought process, because how do you get new thoughts when you have this white space?
Mhm.
So that's, I think, one of the major challenges that we're navigating. And um, it's not like parents are not wanting to do it. It's just sometimes they don't know how to do it,
There is no
because the
blueprint.
ship has sailed. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And that's what's so unique about it too is the best ideation comes from the shower thoughts or
Hmm.
the unconscious, like things you don't have to think about, you just do naturally, where you're taking a walk, you're taking a shower, you're doing whatever. The idea for this podcast came from me in the shower in 2.5 minutes toward the end of my shower one morning. And I go out and sit at the breakfast nook with my daughter and I sketch out the logo for it. And 6 weeks later, I release the show. It all came together in that one moment.
That's
It's
amazing.
it
Yeah.
was unconscious thought I had for years collected. And then in that one moment, it all came together consciously. And clarity breaks for me are huge. They're something that I'm very, very big on. Probably once a quarter, I basically have a 6 or 8 hour isolation off the grid where I just have an agenda of things I need to get clarity on, and I just separate myself from distraction. And I have learned that being in a environment with a lot of noise and a lot of, like my main business, I don't have an office in there anymore where it's a stationary office. I go in for meetings, I go in for things I need to be there for, but I have a home office, I have an offsite office. I have places I can go work, I can isolate myself from
Hmm.
distraction. I have a hard time focusing. Majority of my life has been a struggle, but I've had to create atmosphere and environment for me to do that. And I think being bored, back to what you were saying about the boredom, it's almost like the inability to be present without a dopamine rush. And it's
Hmm.
excruciatingly hard for a lot of people. I need it to thrive. A lot of like kids need dopamine or something with there has to be some type of hook there where they're hooked
Hmm.
into this thing because of this potential result or whatever it may be. And it's hard to navigate through that and be able to appreciate the moment. And I think that's the big thing for me. It's the moments that I appreciate now are so subtle and so small and happen all the time. But my ability to recognize them for the value that they have has been life changing for me. How do we get that in our kids though?
Yeah. So, usually what I do is I recommend no device zones in homes. So being that
Mhm.
It could be like the dinner table or breakfast. Any meal time is a
Mhm.
no device zone. And the most important thing with that is everyone has to follow that rule, not just
Yeah.
the kids,
Yeah.
because otherwise it's not going to work. It's going to fall apart because we have to model what we want to see in our children. We have to model the change we want to see in the world. So that's the same principle over here. Um, the other thing is we have to follow through as parents when we give them, white spaces and they're like, well, we're bored. A lot of times that brings on a lot of anxiety in the
Mhm.
parents because they're like, oh, we must be doing something wrong that our child is bored, that they're not playing a sport or so it's not just screen time. I feel like it's just everybody's life is just so scheduled
Yeah.
that there's no unscheduled. And it's almost bad to have unscheduled days, you know? And if we can kind of model that with our kids and we just kind of we're like, okay, well, this is just, a family day with
Mhm.
no set agenda. Now, that doesn't mean that we're just sitting on our laps, but we're just like, we are just going with the flow type
Mhm.
of, situation.
Yeah.
And so I think that would help them understand that um this is normal to have days like this. And on a daily basis to kind of inculcate those micro breaks,
Mhm.
um, so that there is opportunity for creative thinking that's available to them.
I love it. I don't think it's intentionally done this way, but to some extent, by design, I guess, Monday through Friday is a
Yeah.
very pretty structured, week. The kids go to school,
Yeah.
jujitsu on Wednesday, there's dance on Wednesday before jujitsu, and then there's dance on Tuesday, or, it's pretty somewhat clear what the week looks like. But then Saturdays for me and my girls are like a free for all. We can do whatever. We
Hmm.
don't really have a lot of scheduling done unless there's a sporting game or something like that. My youngest daughter played soccer, so we had a game in the morning, but after that, it's projects. And I mean everything from cardboard rocket ships to
Hmm.
we're gonna, build this thing to the top of the, garage and we're gonna do this. Or it's just the most wild thoughts that come to mind because we're present. And I've done some of the dumbest stuff ever with duct tape and cardboard to date,
Yeah.
just putting something together, and I enjoy every moment of it because 'cause I'm almost like a kid that's present in that moment too, with my kids. So I get to enjoy this experience almost, like, as a child, almost like where it's just me being there and enjoying it, and
Yeah.
I enjoy not what I'm doing, but what they're doing and the enjoyment they have doing that, and I love how you said that, like, go with the flow because that's kinda what it is. It's not a free for all, it's not madness, it's not controlled. It's
Yeah.
just going and enjoying life for what it is and not having that rigid structure. And I just thought about this, the generational thing has been a topic of conversation I've had quite a bit with leadership. But when it comes to structure, today it seems like structure, having systems and models are so at the forefront of everything we do, and rightfully so. Is that stemming from a generation before us that never had structure like that? So they are more prone to working themselves into the ground before actually gaining any ability to be more efficient?
Yeah, I've thought about that also, but I think it's more if we kind of just twisted this a little bit and thought of it as rhythms
Mhm,
versus, like so rigid,
mhm.
in structuring. Because structure and routine is great, but it's when we pack it too much and we stop thinking about rhythms because it's like, okay, Saturday morning, 8 to 12, we kind of do this. But it's like when we get so rigid about it that this is
Yes,
exactly what we have to do is when we kind of are putting ourselves under a more pressure, and that's what gets distributed in the family. So I
love
like
it.
to think of it as more rhythms, and rhythms create that outline. There's a guideline, but there is wiggle room
Mhm,
to kind of, do something spontaneous. as well. Um, because without that, it's going to just be like a free for all type of situation and no one would know what's happening. But with the rhythms, that creates a sense of, almost like a security, but also
Mhm.
spontaneity.
Well, it's not so rigid that you're robotic in the
Yeah.
day
Yeah,
where I
exactly.
for me, like a vacation or something of that sort where it's supposed to be fun and relaxed, nothing was worse to me than having schedules. And
Yeah.
I used to be someone that was so uptight about being early to everything I did. And I mean, I'm talking like a haircut or a family event, something that
Hmm.
didn't have a deadline, or it's not some meeting that I have to have this thing in there, I go to jail. It's not like some massive thing.
Yeah.
It's it's some fun family function or some like get together that, come anywhere between 3 and 5 and I'm there at 2:50. And I used to be so like particular about that. It would drive me crazy if I wasn't. If I'm at the airport, I'm 2 hours early. And as I got a little bit older, I think that I understand it's the magnitude of my problems, or I like to call them puzzles. If you have any profitability in business, I think you have puzzles and not really problems. There are opportunities to, get better, and that's how I look at it. But whenever I started the last few years kind of transitioning to operating more independently where I didn't have to be a certain place at a certain time. I've been in business, business center for 6 years. I had to rebuild how I was structured in general. And I started realizing that being early was such a good thing for me for a long time. And I still think the respect of being on time is absolutely crucial. But I don't need to be so early that it becomes stressing and detrimental to
Yeah.
my well being, where the stress of being late is actually even worse now because I'm compounding the stress of the additional time needed to get there early. So now when I get to the airport, I have like a rhythm, as you would call it. I know exactly what needs to happen for me to get there on time.
Yeah.
I rarely sit down and wait long to get on a plane, maybe 10 or 15 minutes, but I'm right there at the time I need to be. And I've traveled enough to have the experience to do so, but I don't let that stuff bother me anymore. If I'm not
Yeah.
exactly on the dime early or on time exactly for something that's not critical, so what? I have bigger problems, I think, in my life, and I think is that like a natural thing,
Yeah.
or what do you think? Okay.
That's so relatable because I'm just like that too.
Yeah.
I'm like so and what I found over the years was that I was just not only stressing myself out, but I was stressing my family out.
Oh, yeah.
And they're just at the end of the day, what is the most valuable thing to
Mhm.
all of us is our relationship with our family. And if something's not serving me or my family, then I have to let go. But that is, if it's a habit, it's hard.
Mhm.
And again, if the family's seeing that you're working on it, they appreciate that, and they respect you. And it's something that I would get so worked up if I was 5 minutes late to something.
Mhm.
And I actually had one of my clients had a big issue with this, that she was asking her daughter to get ready and be down at a certain time because they had to go to their grandma's house, and mom hated being late, and their daughter was taking like a teen daughter taking like 5 extra minutes
Mhm.
because she had to go through whatever her steps of getting ready. And they got into an argument, and after that, it was mom just went into such a big guilt spiral that
Mm.
she just was not able to get on top of it. So every interaction after that led her back to that same
Oh,
interaction.
man. Yeah.
And it just became so hard for her to break that thought and that cycle. And she just kept blaming herself.
Mhm.
And so when she started working with me, it was like, we had to peel the layers off as to what exactly was going on. We had to kind of get really deep into it. And she was thankfully able to, with the work we did, she was able to come on the other side. But just because she wanted to be like, you know, just right on time, it it just led into all of that. So sometimes we just have to take a deep breath and step back and think about what are we trying to do and what are we trying to hurt? Like what is going to hurt this if this goes through or if I like stress everybody out?
Mhm.
How is that car ride going to be? Versus, is it okay to be 5 minutes late? Because I'm not really gonna. I mean, in case of missing a plane, of course, I don't want to miss the plane. But just just to get the point across, it's
Yeah.
sometimes really important to just take that deep breath, pause, and be present in the moment. Sometimes zooming out helps. I tell this to my husband a lot. Like, let's just zoom out and see what's happening, like get an overview, and then we can zoom in on the puzzle piece that we're trying to actually solve.
Love it.
And that gives a lot of perspective.
It really does because I think we are most oftentimes the bottleneck in the situation as
Hmm.
leaders of any sort as parents or as entrepreneurs, especially where we have these unconscious thoughts that lead to this conscious thought that puts up blinders and we believe this thing to be true. But a
Yes.
lot of the time, it's more rooted in what's always been a traditional thought than actual reality. I think there's two types of people in life. There's the person that's always seeking truth. We all grow up with environment. We all grow up with the
Hmm.
traditional thought that was handed to us. We have to make what it is out of it for our own self. But traditional thought oftentimes has limitations if you always stay in that same thought process. So there's traditional thought as children, and as we get older, we take what we learned and either learn from it or utilize it or advance it or become a product of it and don't ever believe anything else to be true. I'm always searching for truth. I don't mind being proven wrong. I actually kind of enjoy it because I like having what I always thought to be real shown a different light because I learn so much in the moments where I'm wrong compared to when I am right. When you're going down a path and you're just right about something, it's normally just a product of the time spent
Yeah.
investing in understanding it. But when you're wrong, it opens up a new avenue of growth. And to me, there's no more bigger excitement for me than, oh my God, I thought this was true all along. It's not. This is so cool. Now my paradigm's shattered. I get to go learn something brand new. Absolutely love that setting. But when we're parents, we think that we know what is to be true. And sometimes the kids ask these questions. And you mentioned the questions earlier out of curiosity. It's not criticism sometimes when you're curious. And I
Hmm.
think the difference is vastly overstated where a lot of people think because you're asking a clearly direct question that you're being hypercritical of anything when really you're just trying to figure out what the solution is and you're just curious. Communication. So the word communication is something that
Yeah.
is often studied. I study it all the time. I try to figure out how to be a better communicator and how to be very clear with my message, but then also understanding the emotional side, not just being logical all the time. What is communication like for you? Let's start with the parent side of it. So, with communication and being direct and being logical versus being emotional, what is that communication component like for you in teaching other parents?
Yeah, that's such a great question because I love communication too. And there is communication starts as a parent when you listen. Because a lot of times as a parent, when the kid comes to share something with me, I am listening, but I'm not really listening because I'm just trying to fix it. I'm just like, oh, my child is just sad or my child's frustrated. Let me
Mhm.
just give an explanation. And then it often turns into a lecture. And that's when that disconnect happens
Mhm.
between, especially with the teenagers, because they're just coming to you. And the first question I recommend is, do you want advice or do you want me to just listen? And that itself just kind of cools down the environment. And they understand that it's not about, fixing, because they may just have to vent. They may just come to you just because they want you to just
Yes.
be like a sponge board, like
Yep.
just
I
a
love it.
wall.
Mhm.
Um, and that's something I had to learn personally. And I have seen it work, miracles for relationships, because that one little shift can really like um, get your teen closer to you, get your kid closer to you. And the other thing I really want to be intentional about, and I want to make sure that everybody that's listening is getting across from our conversation, is communication is we are communicating from a place of connection, not correction.
Oh, that's so good. Woo!
S-
Write that
Yep.
down,
So
ladies and gentlemen. My God, that's a good one.
This episode of the Iron and Infrastructure Podcast is brought to you by R&R Pipeline Inc., an infrastructure company. Join our team today at rrpipelineinc.com.
connection over correction is like my mantra. Whenever I have a question about what I'm going to do or how I'm going to communicate something, because don't get me wrong, there is boundaries that we have to hold, because like we had earlier discussed, we're not friends with our children. We're still their
Mhm.
guide. We're their lighthouses. But we help them shine the light where it belongs by connecting first. If we come from a place of correction every time we communicate,
Mm,
we lose that connection, because
that's
we're
so
just
good.
trying to fix and we're just trying to put a band-aid.
That is so good. I just wrote that down because I am someone that I am so, for whatever reason, obsessed with rhythm. Like you talked about rhythm
Mm,
earlier. Everything needs alignment in my life, symmetry. The core values that are in our R&R Pipeline is my main business. Our core values
mhm,
all start with P. So the 5 Ps, I have a 5 P proven process, and I'm just so particular about how things are aligned because I want to remember them and relate to them easily.
mm.
So iron and infrastructure, that's by design, I, and
Yeah.
everything that I have, like my core values for my iron infrastructure business is spell power. They're my power values. And then I have my iron focus, which is like my core focus. Everything is aligned in a way that I can share it to others and they remember it also,
Mhm,
so I can easily remember it too. But so that connection, not correction, that is so good. I absolutely love that because that takes the logic and the emotion
mhm,
and clearly takes the two and then says, you know, when you're asking about do you want solutions or do you want advice or is it just do you want to vent? You're allowing them to set the stage for what they receive
mhm,
because they're coming to you for a reason. Normally, they're going to be open and vulnerable to you for a reason. But if you don't know the reason, then you're assuming. Assumptions have made an ass out of me my entire life, and I'm more often wrong than I am right on what I'm assuming. So, clarity for me is so important. Being clear to the point, it's black and white, very specific.
mhm.
The gray area is something that I struggle with because if it's unspoken, I don't know about it. If it's not clear, how do I react or how do I navigate through that?
Yeah.
And listening without reservation, being open to hearing, I think is the biggest communication like fail in most of society. We are all here to respond and not here to understand. And so it's something I practice like often because I've really sucked at it badly. Majority of my life, I have not been a good listener. So I always try to be interested in the person and not interesting to the person. And
Yeah.
changing that dynamic where instead of talking too much, I really try to pause and listen and not to respond, but to understand. There's a big discrepancy, I think, on the open and honesty part. How hard is it to give direct, honest feedback personally and professionally, but then also to receive what's being said to us, especially when it's something we don't like to hear? The openness side of it. How hard is that now for a lot of people to be open to hearing what's being said and understand without reservation?
Yeah, I mean, I think because we're in such a cancel culture and, such a instant gratification world, that I think open and honest feedback is kind of becoming harder and harder for people to receive and give also. because we're just like, oh, is it gonna hurt their feelings? But if you are a true well-wisher, which you are as a parent for your child, um, you would always have that space and grace. But I do ask that a lot of times, it's just like if a toddler's having a meltdown, you just kind of sit down and start explaining to them and start on this prolonged response, what's that going to do? Really nothing. But if you give the space and the grace and just kind of maybe follow it up later with a story or with a regulated moment, and where there's silence is an opportunity for the toddler to maybe open up. Older kids would do the same, you know tweens, teens, they would do the same, and they are open to our feedback, but they do need to first establish that trust.
Mhm.
You don't take feedback from people who you don't trust, and that trust is lost when you don't have the connection. And so that's why, if we come in from a place of connection, and also when I have struggled with that, I always ask myself, is this coming out of love? Like, what would love do? And if the answer is give the feedback, then I go ahead and give the feedback. But if the answer is no, hold off, then I hold off, because I just kind of pass it through some of these filters before I just continue on with the conversation,
Okay.
and catch
So
myself.
good. That's amazing. Incredible insight. Absolutely genius. I absolutely love that. Intent doesn't mean that it's good to do it or good to say it. And transparency doesn't always mean fully explaining how you are feeling about it. I know I've heard different examples, but I think it was Simon Sinek had talked about
Hmm.
going in maybe to the opera or something, had a friend in this play, and it was god awful. She did really
Yeah.
good, but the entirety of it was not good. She comes off stage and asked how it was, and he said, "You did great." Told her the truth. The next
Yeah.
morning, she called and said, "So what do you really think about the whole thing?" And I think he said, "What do you think about it?" And so
Yeah.
she paused and then said, "Well, I don't think it was that great." And he's like, "Yeah, it was horrible." So the emotion state of her coming off
Yeah.
stage was down, the adrenaline was down. Trying to correct someone in the moment of adrenaline dump, central nervous system's fully engaged, you're in this emotional state for whatever reason, good or bad. The last thing that they need is lectured.
Hmm.
And so it's kind of like buying some time to give that reality check there, because if the emotions heighten, they're not going to be open to it. They're not going to hear the honesty, and then it's not going to give them the opportunity to understand what you're trying to tell them. And that can go for parenting or for children. I think as a parent,
Right.
we hear some things and we normally have these deep rooted triggers that we're unaware of. And so I think understanding who we are and what triggers us is just as important as understanding the other person's and what triggers them. And I always try to pause. If something really pisses me off, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
is it true what's being said? First thing, like I got to look in the mirror first. Is it true? If it is true, then why does it piss me off and why am I doing the thing? And if it's not true, why am I triggered by it? And how can I react in a way that doesn't make it worse, whatever the situation is? A lot of times the insults that come to us when they're intentionally made to be insults, a response is not going to get a good reaction. It's only going to get a worse reaction. So instead of accelerate it, instead of being a fire starter, I'd rather be a fire extinguisher in that moment. And I would rather
Yeah.
just set the stage. I am not in the headspace to talk about this right now. Can we wait till later? Whatever the delay would be to get it to be had later. And it's not so much unwillingness to have that conversation. It's the inability to have presence of mind on both sides in that moment. I don't know if that's a good tactic or not, but it's something that I would rather not say what's on my mind in the moment when it may not be realistically true from what I'm trying to get across, and delay it when my emotional state is not heightened.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, I think the other thing important to remember in this is like, is it circumstantial? Is it
Mhm.
a fact, or is it a thought? Because sometimes it's a thought and we're just that thought seems like a fact.
Hmm.
But like you said, is it true? Meaning, like, is it a fact? Like,
Hmm.
if the feedback was given or a comment was passed, was that truly a fact, or it's just a thought? And there's always room to clarify if that is the situation. But with kids, because I have two teens now. I'm in that season of raising two teens. And so it's always like, you want to stay close to them, but you have to be able to let them have a space. It's like one of my patients, she's 12, and she came up to me and she was like, I enjoy alone time a lot. And she's like the oldest daughter. She's got three young siblings. Is that bad? Like, I just want to, sit with myself. And so I had to explain to her that it's totally normal to feel that way. And if, you're involved in so many activities, you're on the go, it's really healthy to be able to kind of replenish yourself and reset yourself with that quiet time. And I think that's such an important point that we can teach our kids, as we're raising them in this noisy world, and also teach ourselves and practice that, daily,
Hmm.
to come from a place of a full cup and not parenting from like a place of running on empty.
I have a handful of questions. So I know we're
Hmm.
we're in pretty deep already, and
Yeah.
there's so many different directions that you're just absolutely incredible insight. I cannot say it enough. I'm learning so
Thank
much,
you.
by the way, too. And that the connection, not correction thing, I'm gonna
Yeah.
run with that like wildfire
Yeah.
because I absolutely love that. But I've had so many
Thank you.
different trains of thoughts as you're speaking about these things, and I'm understanding you as a person. And so I have a handful of questions. I'm just gonna kind of
Hmm.
go quick with them if you
Sure.
don't mind. But
Sure.
one really interesting question is, how do you lead differently as a doctor and as a coach? What's the difference between doctor leading and coach leading?
Yeah. So a doctor frame is where you diagnose and you treat. And so when you diagnose and it's more like I know what the problem is and I'm going to give you a solution, versus a coach is a person who gives you the space and the tools to figure it out so that you can get your own answers from within. And so as a coach, you're coming from a place of a listener, a guide, someone who is coming from a place of giving you the right tools, but now it's in your hands. What answer seems correct? In which direction would you like to go? And that's the path we go on.
Wow, that's amazing. That was really, really good. I was not expecting that clear of an answer. That's incredible. What kind of in that same realm, what has entrepreneurship taught you that you never were learning in medical school? Whether it be about people or just anything, but what was the difference between entrepreneurship and what you learned in medical school?
So in medical school, it's all about systems, protocols. We obviously do no harm. And I mean, I'm so passionate about my profession, and it's a gift that I've received, and I, love helping people. Um, when I chose the path of entrepreneurship, I learned so many limiting beliefs were holding me back, and it was true freedom. It's just, the gratification that came from entrepreneurship was just another layer on top of the gratification that I get from my profession itself. So I feel really blessed and thankful for having both of these, um, you know, kind of in my world. But the more I go down the path of entrepreneurship and taking decisions and breaking those ceilings, and it's more the limiting beliefs that I carried for so many years. Um, just the narrative that I was telling myself to stay small, and entrepreneurship has opened that box for me, and so many opportunities line up. And I think it was the biggest thing was I learned how to take decisions and how one decision can change your life. And I'm a firm believer in that.
It's not always about making the right decision, but making a decision
Hmm.
right.
Just the decision. Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
So kind of in that same realm, then I guess this one kind of just hit me as you mentioned all that, but your professors through medical school or teachers in medical school compared to mentorship or coaches in entrepreneurship, what's the difference in leading style from that regard?
Yeah. So the professors, and by the way, I went to med school in India, so it's
Mm.
a very different environment over there as well. So that's another thing that I've dealt with, culturally, just kind of living in two different parts of the world. Um, but always very supportive as professors. They just want to, teach, and they're passionate about um, these kids becoming doctors and, doing the best they could in the world. But as a coach and a mentor, it is more about a deeper insight into the individual
Mm.
itself and the mindset piece of it, um, which I think both are really important and both are, necessary for you to succeed. But it's also coming from a point of like whenever I've had a mentor as a mentee, what can I add to them as a mentee? And that helps the just the cycle of, giving back. And it's the mindset of like not coming from a place of scarcity, but a place of abundance. So, a mentor may know a lot more, a coach may know a lot more, and I'm here to learn from them, their wisdom. But what can I add to
Yeah.
that as well? That keeps that abundance flowing.
Love it. I've had a lot of circumstances. I'm in a coaching program called Strategic Coach, and I go to Chicago every quarter for it. Dan Sullivan founded the company in the 80s, and it's been 40 years of him teaching entrepreneurs. And it's
Yep.
basically entrepreneurship college that, a
Hmm.
lot of people there went to school, but it's ongoing, never ending ability to take tools, implement them for freedom in your life. And I was honored to be on that show. It's an absolutely incredible program, and I love it. It's been life changing for me. And it's so interesting to learn from someone that has been doing this for a long time. And then it's also interesting to know that sometimes in a room full of students, as we're learning from someone else, our value is actually really high in that same setting because we're all high
Yeah.
performers in there. There's a lot of times that I've been able to help other people out more than maybe the teacher did in that moment or someone else did. And it
Yeah.
was baffling to me to understand that we don't recognize our own value a lot of the time.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't see that we're as valuable as we really are, and sometimes we don't know that we're not as valuable as we think we are. So understanding really where we're at is very powerful, but it doesn't come without a lot of intentional work. How important on a scale of 1 to 10 is it to put ourselves first? Some might call it selfish, but building the best version of ourselves with health and fitness, with personal development, with making sure that we are the 10.0 version of us to serve the world.
If I could give it more than 10 points, I would, because
Amen to that.
it's
Mhm.
so important. I mean, I just can't stress it enough. Health and fitness. I've always been an active person, but when I made it a non-negotiable in my daily life is when I became a better mother. Um, and yes, some might call it selfish, but the fact of the matter is you just can't pour from an empty cup.
Mhm.
So whatever fills your cup is what you want to focus on. Now, self-care may look different for different people,
Mhm.
and I respect that, but personal growth, health and fitness, your mind, body, and soul the health of, you know, your inside out is what's going to show up in your business, in your relationships, in your life. And I mean, you just have to ask yourself, like, as an 80-year-old person, am I going to be proud of this? Am I going to be proud of these habits that I have today? And if the answer is yes, awesome. And if the answer is no, then, do yourself a favor and pivot, pivot from there. Because you're not doing this. The fact of the matter is, you're not doing this just for yourself. It is really, at the end of the day, it's not selfish. You're actually doing this. Your kids are going to be thankful. If you're a
Yeah.
healthy, uh, older grandma or grandpa, your kids are going to be thankful for that.
Mhm.
And putting in the work today is going to what's going to add up, brick by brick.
So good. That's amazing. Wow. The way you lay that out is so good. Whenever someone would say, "Oh, you're selfish for doing this or that," I'm actually selfless because it's not what I want to
Hmm.
go do. I wake up at 2:50 in the morning, so pretty much 3 a.m. Monday through Friday. I'm at the gym by 3:30
Hmm.
and pretty much till 6 a.m. That is my time. Physical and mental development at the highest degree. I start every day off like that. Before the sun comes up, I have absolutely conquered the world that day with the physical workout,
Yeah.
probably roughly an hour of time spent. It doesn't have to be extreme every day. It doesn't have to be intense
Yeah.
every day. It has to be consistent over a long period of time. And the mental part of it, as soon as I get done working out, the dopamine rush is there. I'm feeling good. I'm probably more able to focus on something. I'm not distracted because I just got done working out, which disconnects me from anything digital. So I have an audiobook that turns on before I even get my truck started and get in it. It's already on my phone. As soon as my truck starts,
Yeah.
it's on and I'm engaged in that thing. And it's hard sometimes to even disconnect from that because I'm so in the moment. And so I just let that be a habit of mine where I have 5 standards. I call it the standards of greatness. Number 1 is no snooze. You set your alarm clock to wake up, you wake up. You make it a
Hmm.
non-negotiable. It's the habit of it and the importance of that
Yeah.
habit over the actual time you're waking up. The next one's physical output, and then the third one is mental input. 10 minutes a day is all that I look at to be a bare minimum requirement. It's enough to be intentional, to move forward and keep the momentum in place. So it's not this 7-day a week, hour and a half workout
Yeah.
intensity. It's about the non-negotiable part is the everyday that just microdose. Most days are much more than that for me, but 10 minutes a day equals 60 hours in a year, and you can get a lot accomplished with that compound
Yeah.
effect. The fourth one is track and attack. You must track your progress. If you're not tracking where you're going, then you're going to end up exactly where you don't know. Any road will get you there if you don't know where you're going.
Yeah.
So you must track progress. You must set out something to obtain with that progress, but being important and intentional about the tracking is huge. And then you attack every day for what it is. If it means a Sunday afternoon nap, attack that nap and make it the best. Really back to
Yeah.
the intentional attention. It's about focusing on what you're supposed to do that day. And then the last one is gratitude and preparation. Gratitude at the end of every day is non negotiable for me. Win or learn. It's something that I live by. I don't ever lose because losing to me is accepting failure. I win, get desired outcome, or learn, not get desired outcome and have a lesson learned because of it. And that's where gratitude comes in at the end of every day. I've only had one bad day in my life, and that's when a tragedy happened. Every other day since and every day before that was a good day. I don't have any bad days. And then preparation. I think success today started yesterday. Preparation for me is so simple. I'm like a third grader. I got to get my lunchbox put together. I got to have my food packed,
Hmm.
my gallon jug of aminos and hydration put together. I'm ready for the gym with my clothes laid out. I'm ready for my business day. I'm very simple. I wear a black shirt, either long sleeve or short sleeve, 99% of the time. I don't want to have to think about the little things because I have the big problems
Yeah.
to solve or puzzles to work through. And so them are my 5 like standards. It's amazing how simple them things are. It's amazing
Yeah.
how often people will look at that like and laugh and then implement it and their life is forever changed.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Absolutely. Very inspiring. Thank you for sharing that.
So for you, you've done so many things, and I want to touch on this because you kind of mentioned a little bit ago. you grew up in India, right? Is that correct? Is that where
Mm-hmm.
you're born and
Yep.
raised? And then you come into
Yes.
the United States. I'm gonna just let you talk about that whole experience. I cannot relate. I'm ignorant on
Yeah.
this. I can't even understand it. Just lay it out there what that dynamic is like and what the learning lessons are, the things that you can help other people with maybe. But the floor is yours. Tell the listeners all about it.
Yes. Yeah. No, I love sharing my story. And I came in the United States for my residency, which was my pediatric training. So I spent 3 years there, um, and I learned so much. I mean, just for starters, like medical school in India and the culture in medicine in India is you always uh, address your professors by like their last names. You say, Dr. So and so. And here you come here and they're all like, "Oh, just call me by my first name." And I'm like, "No, that's wrong. That's very disrespectful. I can't do that." And so that itself, I mean, the little things like that was just like learning every day. But I love the training that I received and I'm grateful for it, and it shaped me as a person. I was able to navigate so many things. When you come first to the country, it's like you don't even know what Walmart is and what Target is, you know? And I joke about this because I'm like, for my kids, like, at least you won't have to figure that out. Like, at least you know the basics. So it's literally starting from scratch, not knowing, what you're going to be navigating the next day. Made it a worthy challenge though, because you just become an individual who's resilient, who's independent, and it grows you much faster, in those years.
Yes.
And then from there, it was all about training and working in the community, giving back, um, and helping patients. There is challenges in the sense of, like connection. When I say connection with the patients, a lot of it is cultural too. And when you're a first generation immigrant, that you want to connect, but it's just that you don't know how to because you just haven't grown up in the same environment. So, like, the language slang could be different, the sports are different. I mean, I wasn't able to connect with, like, say, my patients who are football fans, and because we don't have NFL back home in India. So over the years I've learned that, and I think, at least I know all the teams and a lot of the players, and my son's teaching me, so it's fun. So I think it develops you as an eager learner, and it develops you as a lifelong learner, because you just always have something new happening every day. Um, but you do appreciate the system, you do appreciate the opportunity, and it's my home now. So um, truly grateful and blessed.
What was the deciding factor to stay? I guess I don't know what life was like for you in India, but what was like the thing where you're just like, yeah, we're never going back, or we're staying here, or this is home now? Was it just the culture difference, or what was that? I'm really intrigued.
Yeah, no, I had a amazing childhood, loving family, very protected home. I actually did not even leave my hometown until I came here. So it was like a big jump for me. Um, but it was just, once I trained here, the training here was, different from the training that I would get back home. And so eventually it just, once you stay for a few years, then you just kind of stay back. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what happened. But um, I consider myself lucky to have had the knowledge and exposure for growing up in a country like India, because I appreciate the resources that are available over here, and the way health system works even more. And I try to, just like you said, it's kind of unrelatable, like you don't know like what it's like to be an immigrant. And I mean, obviously that's understandable, but to give the perspective to come from a developing nation to a developed nation and help people understand the resources that we have here, to be appreciative and respectful of those sometimes is can be like a little irking, because it's like you don't understand what you have over here versus like people in developing nations are trying to get those resources.
Yeah.
And so that sometimes makes me feel like, um can we just be grateful for what we have here, and not make it so political or so like just unappreciated.
I love that because I'm sure something like running water that you can drink and it's safe
Hmm.
is
Yeah.
probably something where you're from growing up
Yeah.
that wasn't readily available all the time. It was something that was sought after, not looked past. That's an assumption, I don't know, but I'm just assuming on little things like
Yeah.
that here
Yes.
were really big things, where you're from back home. So I love the insight. It's incredible. Um, I want to give you the floor to kind of close out. This has been an amazing experience. You're welcome back anytime. We didn't even get into the whole entire
Thank you.
entrepreneur journey and everything else. I've been so intrigued with what we discussed today. So you're welcome back anytime you'd like. Um, let the listeners know where they can find you, what all you do coach on. I mean, you have so many different avenues. I'm so intrigued with another conversation at some point. But let everyone know where they can find you and what all you have going on.
Awesome. Yeah. So the listeners can find me at my Instagram handle at Dr. Juhi. And if they DM me the word reset, I can send them a free guide to just do a parenting reset playbook. And then I think I would like to close out by saying that remember to stay curious and not controlling, stay connected and not correcting. And if you just kind of remember those, I think that will transform your relationship. We're here to hold boundaries. We're here to be our kids' lighthouses. We're here to be a support that they can fall back on. And if we can build that trust and keep that connection, that will go a long way. It doesn't have to be elaborate, it doesn't have to be a lot of quantity. It just matters. The little moments matter the most.
Mm. Mm. What was the playbook again, and what was your Instagram handle? Did you mention that? Where they can
Yes,
find you at?
it's at Dr. Juhi, DoctorJuhi is the
And
Instagram handle.
DM, yeah, it was
And then
DM reset?
DM the word reset to get
Mhm.
the parenting reset playbook.
Awesome. I asked that last part again for clarity because I wanted to make sure that I could
Yeah.
DM you reset
Yeah.
because I'm gonna do that and I'm gonna check it out myself
Yes.
because I'm very interested. I cannot thank you enough. This was absolutely incredible. Your insight is profound, and I'm thankful for your time today. So, um, thank you. Like I said earlier, you're welcome back anytime.
Thank you. It was an honor.
Awesome. Another edition of the Iron and Infrastructure podcast with profound wisdom today. Until next time, see you there.
Stop telling yourself one day. It isn't about one day, it's about day one. Today should be your day one. What you need isn't another day. What you need is clarity with the community to give you confidence to unlock your greatness. That's what the group coaching program is all about. Confidence, clarity, via commitment. Hit the show link in the notes. Let's start unlocking your greatness now, today.